Whenever I see a scary thread, it ends up being about ghosts and whatnot. That's not scary. I find real people more strange and eerie than the paranormal. What are your scariest encounters with real people? This can be anything. People breaking into your home, strange neighbors, friends turning on you, odd things you've overheard, moments when someone has threatened your safety. Tell me your stories. Whether it made you feel slightly uncomfortable, or if it frightened you out of your wits, I would like to hear it. People scare me more than any ghost or ghoul ever could, because people are evil and very unpredictable. When I used to walk home from the bus stop, I used to walk past a house where a man, maybe in his 40s, lived. If he was out the front, when I walked past, we would say hello to each other. Perfectly normal. But sometimes he would be inside at the window just looking out at me. He didn't wave. I tried waving once, but got no response, or show any sign that he saw me. My friend happened to be with me once when he did this, and she told me that it almost seemed as though he thought we couldn't see him. This behavior didn't happen all the time. Don't get the wrong idea, he wasn't a weird stalker or anything. Just sometimes. Maybe about 10 to 12 times. Nothing ever came of it. I stopped busing it and started driving. He moved away a few years ago, and then I moved even more recently. I just remember that horrible feeling when I saw him watching, because I had no way of knowing what he was thinking. Okay, so surely you guys can top my story. I've lived a relatively psychopath-free life, so it should be relatively easy to spook me. Edit. This is great, guys. I have an exam tomorrow, and thanks to you my procrastination is coming along nicely. There are some really spooky experiences and there's some pretty hilarious stories too. Keep them coming. I'm so happy this question was asked. This is the only good story in my whole life. Growing up, I always wanted to go on a bike ride at night. Something about it seemed really cool to me. It wasn't until I was 13 that my mom finally let me. She told me to wear my helmet, have my phone, take a flashlight, and she set the parameters for where I was allowed to go. She gave me about 4 miles, which was a lot to me. So right after the sunset, I was off. I loved it. There were no people out walking their dogs, no kids running around. The temperature was perfect, etc. It was really fun. So fun that I ignored the limits my mom set. You see, where I was biking was all walking paths. It was one of those grassy areas between 2 neighborhoods. There's this long path that went at least 600 feet at a 25-degree angle. I was flying down this hill, having an absolute blast, and darted right through the parameters. My mom set these limits for a reason. Everything on the inside was close to houses and people. The outside, more specifically, the place where the path I was on led to, was barren. I rode along this path for 10 minutes before I could only see some of the lights of the houses on the inside of the limits. After 15 minutes of riding along this dirt path, I hear singing. It sounded about 30 to 40 feet in front of me. I stopped riding to hear it better. It was a woman's voice. She was singing Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles. But she wasn't singing the words, just the melody of the vocals. Her voice was strange. You know how, when you have phlegm in your throat, your voice gets scratchy. That's what her voice sounded like. I inch forward to try and see her. I get close enough to see the silhouette of hair bouncing up and down, like she was headbanging. I decide to get my flashlight out. I'm thinking that maybe this person is in need of help or something. Or maybe this is an insane person and the light will scare them away. So I take the flashlight out of my pocket, point it at her, and turn it on. The moment the light hit her, she stopped moving completely. She was facing away from me. She had disgusting hair that seemed to be sticking together in clumps. Some of her hair was ripped off, too. She was wearing a very oversized, bright red hoodie. I was almost too scared to move. I think she was, too. I conjured up as much bravery as I could and said sorry in a very, oops this is the wrong room, kind of way. She didn't respond. I turned off the flashlight and put it back in my pocket. Just as I was turning my bike around, she screams. She screams in an awful, high-pitched voice. I damn near speed myself as I throw myself back onto my bike. I hear her voice getting closer to me. I book it as fast as I can. I don't look behind me, and I don't stop pedaling. Her screaming grew quieter and quieter until it dissolved into the howling of the wind. TL. Doctor went on a bike ride at 13. Heard someone singing Alina Rigby in the darkness. Shine a flashlight on her. She freezes. Turn it off. She screams and runs at me as I bike away. Must never go there. Simba. I once worked as a live-in staff member in a college dormitory. During the summer we housed the few summer school students who remained on campus near 30. It may be significant to point out these students tended towards the highly academically motivated, oftentimes high-stress students, if quiet. One warm day in late June my office received a call from a concerned sibling that she and her family was unable to reach her brother who lived by himself in a room on the summer school floor. This wasn't unusual as our office frequently dealt with students avoiding their kith and kin due to frayed nerves or general social awkwardness. Our normal protocol to check on a student is to try to reach them by our emergency contact information. Failing that, go check their room to verify they are living in the building and perhaps available then and there. Then have them call their family to verify we followed up on the original request. Also, we are to only enter a room with another staff member present to ensure personal safety of staff and students. I failed to reach this student on his room and mobile phone, and was working short-staffed, so, since I was on my own, I decided to pop up to his room and check on him. I arrived on his floor around 2 in the afternoon and the floor seemed deserted as I had expected. I found his room number and immediately noticed the sound of a movie playing on a TV or computer from behind the door. I knocked 3 times and announced that I was a staff member checking on his health and safety. No answer. I didn't think this was that remarkable. College students are notorious for leaving electronics running while not in the room. I checked the floor showers and bathrooms and found them deserted. I returned to his door and knocked 3 more times, waiting about 20 seconds between each knock. No answer. This is when my instinct started to buzz. I worked in residence halls a number of years as a professional and something about all the pieces of this puzzle weren't adding up. Family concerned about his health and safety. Electronics running, someone must have started them recently, within the time frame of a movie runtime. Summer school students and their idiosyncratic behavior. Something wasn't right. I was by myself, so I probably let myself get more worked up than if I was with someone else. A deserted dorm floor, even at 2 in the afternoon, oftentimes evokes capricious memories of the Overlook Hotel. I decided that for some sense of closure or sanity I needed the immediate resolution of keying into the student's room, even though I was by myself and not technically supposed to do so. I knocked on the door 1 more time for good measure, again announced myself as the hall director. I keyed into the room and my spider sense went off even stronger. The room appeared relatively vacant. The student appeared to be living out of a suitcase, which is unusual for someone staying no less than 8 weeks for a summer school session. The bedding was tousled like someone had been sleeping in it and all the lights in the room were on. And as I had suspected, there was an open laptop on a desk running on battery power playing The Matrix. But no student. I began to start rationalizing to keep from feeling unsettled. Surely this student and I had crossed paths on my way to his room. I'd never met him before, so I wouldn't recognize him otherwise, and perhaps he was just down in the lobby picking up delivery food for a late lunch. Sure, that's it. Then I turned to leave, planning on trying to reach the student later in the afternoon or that night. As I turned to leave I noticed another odd piece of evidence. The accordion closet doors, which are removed in most rooms due to disuse. Particularly single rooms like his, were still in this room. And they were closed. Odd. I couldn't remember the last time I actually saw someone use those cranky, dysfunctional doors. Then my intuition spiked higher than ever. Speep speep speep. I realized I was alone in a room with a potentially suicidal student who may, in fact, have completed just that. And I'm about to be that guy who discovers the body and then has a speep storm of paperwork and undesirable tasks, not the least of which would be calling the family back to break the news. I felt like I was talking to myself when my voice cracked as I spoke to the closed doors and announced my name and title, and that I would be opening those accordion doors in 3 seconds. I fumbled with the latch on the doors and finally managed to get them disengaged, and as I slid the doors apart, I was unprepared. I don't know what I really expected. A hanging? Gunshot wound? I'll tell you what I didn't expect. A 7 feet dark-skinned Indian man staring at me embarrassingly, as though I had found his secret hangout. We stared at each other for a good 15 seconds without blinking, breathing or speaking. I finally realized what was going on and my natural emotion was disbelief. All I could think to say was, are you in here hiding from me? He looked at me and said, yeah. My heart was still racing. I turned to leave, and before I shut his door I turned back to him and said, call your sister. She's worried about you. And, frankly, I'm too. TLDR. I met an Indian in the cupboard. Literally. Scared me. Post had my heart racing, and I lost it at the TLDR. Well done. One night, around 3 AM, I was dead asleep with my ex-boyfriend next to me. All of a sudden I hear someone in my house asking if anyone was home. I woke up my ex and told him to go see what the hell was going on. He was a total chicken speep and made me go. I get out of bed. Can't find my glasses, but the guy is still shouting. I come out of my bedroom in my pajamas and see there is a big bald dude in what looks to be a police uniform standing in my entryway. I'm squinting trying to get a good look at him, and he looks at me and says, I just wanted to tell you that your door was left unlocked and you should lock it. I mumble something to the effect of thanks. And he leaves my apartment. I'm still as blind as a bat, but I see that he walks away instead of getting into a car. No policeman would be policing the woodsy area I live in on foot. The next day I called the local police station and asked if any officers had reported this incident, and they said they would check with the on-duty officers and get back to me. They called me the next day and said no one had done this. I still get freaked out when I think about this happening, and I wish I knew what that guy was up to. My roommate was sleeping in our apartment in the middle of the day once. We lived in a college town with lots of duplex houses around. It is a relatively safe area. During the daytime you usually have very little to worry about. So, she is asleep with her door cracked open, and she wakes up to a noise. She sits up and there is a homeless guy standing at her door staring at her silently through the crack. Naturally, she flips out, and he gives the same excuse. Your door was unlocked. I wanted to tell you. Moral of the story. Lock your doors, or strange men will inform you that you didn't. Who doesn't lock their front doors? Seriously? I don't know about you, but I look at mine at least twice a day.